A Silverado owner walks into a dealership for one warning light, one weird noise, or one tiny complaint. An hour later, he walks out with a printed estimate that looks like a truck payment: $400 for a battery, $200 for a purge valve, $700 for a wheel bearing, $500 for spark plugs. And somehow, a dirty air filter has been turned into a full air induction service package. That is the part that drives owners crazy. Some dealer quotes are serious. If your transmission is slipping, your engine is knocking, your brake lines are rusted through, or the truck has a safety recall, that is not the time to play hero in the driveway. But a lot of Silverado quotes are not major mechanical surgery. They are simple parts, basic tools, and a little patience. The dealership is not always scamming you. They have labor rates, diagnostics, shop supplies, warranty procedures, and overhead. But that does not mean every quote deserves your wallet. Some of them deserve a socket set. So these are 10 Silverado dealer quotes you can often fix in the driveway, ranked from the easiest money savers to the ones that can save you hundreds if you do them carefully. Number 10. The cabin air filter quote. This is the easiest one on the list, and somehow it still catches people. The dealer pulls your cabin air filter, walks it over like evidence in a crime scene, and suddenly you are looking at a quote for an air filter replacement that costs way more than the filter itself. On many Silverados, the cabin filter is behind the glove box. You open the glove box, release the tabs, lower the door, open the little filter cover, slide the old filter out, and slide the new one in the same direction. That is it. A dirty cabin filter can make the air conditioning feel weak. It can make the vents smell dusty. It can make the blower work harder. And if you drive on dirt roads, construction sites, or in heavy pollen areas, it can get nasty fast. But the fix is not complicated. What you should not do is let someone sell you a mystery HVAC cleaning package just because the cabin filter is dirty. Replace the filter first, run the fan, check the airflow, then decide if there is still a real problem. A lot of the time, the truck did not need a big service, it needed a $20 rectangle. Number 9. The engine air filter quote. This one is just as common. A service advisor tells you the engine air filter is dirty, and the quote is written like they have to tear half the truck apart to change it. On many Silverado engines, the air filter lives inside the airbox on the driver's side of the engine bay. You unclip or unscrew the airbox lid, lift it carefully, remove the old filter, clean out any loose debris, and install the new filter so it seals properly. The key word is properly. Do not just throw it in there sideways and crush the seal. Do not leave leaves and sand sitting in the bottom of the box. Do not forget to reconnect anything you moved. And if your truck has an air filter life monitor, reset it after the replacement if your model requires it. A clogged engine air filter can hurt performance, especially when it is really packed with dirt. But a slightly dusty filter is not an emergency, and it is definitely not a reason to approve a whole upsell menu. This is one of those repairs where the dealer labor can cost more than the part. In the driveway, it is usually a few minutes. Number 8. The battery and terminal quote. This one is sneaky because it feels serious. The truck hesitates before starting. The dash flickers. The service advisor says the battery failed the test, and now the quote is pushing $400 or more. Sometimes the battery really is bad. Batteries are wear items. Heat kills them. Cold exposes them. And modern Silverados are packed with electronics that do not like weak voltage. But before you approve the quote, look at the basics. Are the terminals clean? Are they tight? Is there green or white corrosion around the posts? Is the negative cable loose? Has the truck been sitting for weeks? A weak battery can create weird Silverado behavior. Random warning lights, no-start complaints, low voltage codes, and strange electrical symptoms can all start with a bad battery or bad connection. The driveway fix is simple if you are comfortable doing it. Test the battery. Clean the terminals. Replace the battery with the correct group size and rating. Tighten the connections properly. Then clear the codes and see what comes back. Do not cheap out on the wrong battery just because it fits in the tray. And do not ignore corrosion on the cables. A new battery on dirty cables is like putting new tires on a bent wheel. It might work for a while, but you did not fix the real connection problem. Quick thing before we get into the repairs that actually save serious money. The data on this channel shows that a huge number of people watching these Silverado videos are not subscribed yet. That means you are showing up when your truck has a problem, but the algorithm has no reason to bring you back before the next expensive quote lands on the counter. If you have made it this far, you clearly care about fixing smarter and not getting buried by repair bills. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Number 7. The bulb and lighting quote. A Silverado comes in with a brake light out, a license plate light out, a reverse light out, or a turn signal blinking fast. The dealer writes it up as a lighting concern. Then the quote comes back with diagnostic time, bulb replacement, maybe a harness inspection, and suddenly a $5 bulb has a 3-digit labor bill attached to it. Sometimes wiring really is the problem. Trailer wiring can cause chaos. Water intrusion can corrode sockets. Aftermarket LEDs can create strange behavior. Bad grounds can make lights act possessed. But start with the simple stuff. Find the bulb that is out. Check the socket. Look for melted plastic, green corrosion, loose pins, or water inside the lens. Replace the bulb with the correct type. Test it before you put everything back together. If it works, you are done. If it blows again, flickers, or the socket is burned, then you have a wiring or socket problem. But you do not start with the most expensive explanation. You start with the part that actually fails all the time. Number 6. The EVAP purge valve or gas cap quote. This one is famous. The check engine light comes on. The code is something like a small EVAP leak, large EVAP leak, purge flow issue, or emission system fault. The truck drives normally, so the owner takes it to the dealer. Then comes the quote. A purge valve, a vent valve, a charcoal canister, a smoke test, a gas cap. Maybe all of it together if the shop is feeling creative. The EVAP system is there to control fuel vapors, and yes, it can be annoying to diagnose. A loose gas cap can trigger a code. A stuck purge valve can trigger a code. A cracked hose can trigger a code. A vent valve full of dust can trigger a code. A bad canister can trigger a code. So do not fire the parts cannon blindly. But the purge valve is often one of the easier driveway checks and replacements, depending on your year and engine. If your Silverado has hard starts after fueling, rough idle right after filling the tank, or EVAP purge codes, the purge valve deserves attention. On many trucks, it is not buried deep in the engine. You disconnect the electrical connector, release the hose connection, swap the valve, and make sure everything clicks back into place. The gas cap is even easier. Check the seal, tighten it until it clicks. Replace it if the rubber is cracked or the cap does not hold properly. But here is the catch. EVAP codes do not always mean the first part named on the scanner is bad. A scan tool gives you a clue. It does not give you permission to buy $300 of random parts. Number 5. Brake pads and rotors. This is where the list gets more serious. Brakes are absolutely a driveway job for a lot of Silverado owners, but only if you are careful, have the right tools, and understand that this is a safety system. The dealer quote usually sounds like this. Front pads and rotors, rear pads and rotors, brake fluid service, caliper hardware, shop supplies, taxes. Suddenly, you are staring at a number that feels like it belongs on a mortgage statement. Sometimes the quote is fair. Parts and labor add up. Trucks are heavy. Rust makes everything harder. And a stuck caliper can turn a simple brake job into a bigger repair. But if your pads are worn and your rotors are serviceable or easy to replace, this is one of the most common driveway saves. You need jack stands, not just a jack. You need a torque wrench, you need brake cleaner, you need the correct pads and rotors, you need to inspect the caliper slide pins, boots, and hardware. You need to make sure the caliper is not seized, and you need to torque the wheels properly when you are done. Do not hang the caliper by the hose. Do not reuse destroyed hardware. Do not ignore a torn slide pin boot. Do not slap pads on a rotor that is grooved, cracked, or shaking the steering wheel under braking. And please, do not do your first brake job in the dark the night before a road trip. But if you do it right, this is one of those repairs where you immediately understand why people work on their own trucks. Because the savings are real. Number 4. Spark plugs and ignition coils. A Silverado starts misfiring. The check engine light flashes. The truck runs rough. The dealer scans it and gives you a quote for plugs, wires, coils, and maybe an injector diagnosis. Sometimes that quote is justified. A flashing check engine light means the misfire can damage the catalytic converters, so do not ignore it. But a misfire does not automatically mean the engine is falling apart. On a lot of Silverado V8s, plugs and wires are driveway work. The coils are right there. The plug wires are visible. The plugs are threaded into the heads. The job can be annoying because some cylinders are tight, but it is not magic. The important part is diagnosis. If the code says cylinder 3 misfire, do not replace every part on the truck immediately. You can inspect the plug wire, check the plug, swap a coil to another cylinder if the design allows, and see if the misfire follows. That tells you whether you are chasing the right component. When replacing plugs, use the correct plug. Gap only if the plug style and manufacturer instructions allow it. Start the threads by hand, use the right torque, and do not break a plug wire because you yanked it like a lawnmower cord. A dealer quote for a full tune-up can be painful. A careful driveway plug and wire job can be much less painful. But if the misfire remains after ignition parts, stop guessing. Fuel, compression, lifters, wiring, and injector issues are all possible. The driveway can save money. It can also waste money if you refuse to diagnose. Number 3. The oxygen sensor quote. This one can be a trap. The check engine light comes on. The code mentions an oxygen sensor. The quote says oxygen sensor replacement. The owner buys a sensor and crawls under the truck. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it does not. Because an oxygen sensor code does not always mean the oxygen sensor is bad. Exhaust leaks, intake leaks, wiring issues, fuel trim problems, and catalytic converter problems can all make oxygen sensor data look wrong. That is why this is number 3, not number 10. It is driveway fixable, but you need to know what you are doing. If the sensor has truly failed, replacing it can be straightforward. You unplug the connector, use an oxygen sensor socket or wrench, remove the old sensor, install the correct replacement, route the wiring safely away from exhaust heat, and clear the code. But the exhaust gets hot enough to burn you badly, and old sensors can seize in the pipe. So use patience, penetrating oil, and common sense. Do not buy universal sensors with hacked wiring unless you really know what you are doing. Use the correct upstream or downstream sensor for the right bank. Bank 1 and Bank 2 matter. Sensor 1 and Sensor 2 matter. This is where owners make expensive mistakes. They replace the wrong sensor, the code comes back, and now the dealer quote looks smarter than it did before. So yes, an oxygen sensor can be a driveway fix, but only after you confirm the sensor is the problem. Number 2. The oil pressure sensor quote. On certain Silverado engines, the oil pressure reading starts acting weird. It drops to 0. It jumps around. The warning light comes on. The gauge looks scary. The dealer quote may come back for an oil pressure sensor, and depending on the year and engine, the labor number can hurt. The sensor itself is not always expensive. The annoying part is access. On many GM V8 trucks, the oil pressure sensor sits at the back of the engine, near the firewall. Some years also have a little filter screen under the sensor that can clog. That tiny screen can make owners think the sensor is bad, or make the new sensor act wrong if it is ignored. This can be done in the driveway, but it is not fun on every truck. You need the right socket. You need patience. You may need to remove intake parts depending on the model. You need to be careful with the connector. And you need to know the difference between a bad sensor reading and real low oil pressure. That last part matters. If the engine is actually losing oil pressure, replacing the sensor does not fix the engine. So check the oil level, listen for noise, verify pressure if the symptoms are serious. Do not treat every oil pressure warning like a sensor glitch. But if the truck is quiet, oil level is good, the gauge is acting erratic, and diagnosis points to the sensor, this is one of those repairs where the part cost and the dealer quote can feel wildly disconnected. A small sensor buried in an irritating spot can become a big bill fast. Number 1. The wheel hub assembly quote. This is the big one. A Silverado starts making a humming or growling noise. It changes with speed. Sometimes it gets louder when turning one direction. Sometimes the ABS light comes on because the wheel speed sensor is part of the hub assembly. The dealer checks it and quotes a wheel bearing or hub assembly. And the quote can be brutal. This repair is driveway fixable for a lot of mechanically comfortable owners, but it is not beginner level if the truck is rusty. The hub assembly bolts to the steering knuckle. The brake caliper and rotor come off. The axle nut may need to come off on four-wheel drive models. The ABS wire has to be disconnected and routed correctly. The hub may be stuck in the knuckle like it was welded there by road salt and hatred. That is where the job turns. On a clean truck, it may be straightforward. On a rusty truck, it can become a fight. You need jack stands. You need the right sockets. You need a torque wrench. You need to torque the axle nut and hub bolts correctly. You need to route the ABS wire exactly like the old one so it does not rub, stretch, or get ripped out. And you need to diagnose the noise before you replace the hub. Bad tires can sound like wheel bearings. Cup tires can fool people. Differential noise can fool people. A loose dust shield can fool people. So before spending money, lift the truck safely, check for play, spin the wheel, listen, compare sides, inspect the tire wear, and confirm the noise. If it is the hub, this is one of the biggest driveway wins on the list because the dealer quote includes real labor. You are replacing that labor with your own time, your own tools, and probably a few words your neighbors should not hear. Now, before you run outside and start fixing everything, here is the part that matters. Not every dealer quote is a driveway job. Air conditioning refrigerant work is not the same as changing a filter. Brake lines are not the same as brake pads. Internal transmission problems are not the same as a cooler bypass valve. An engine knock is not the same as an oil pressure sensor. A collapsed lifter is not the same as a spark plug. This is where Silverado owners get themselves in trouble. They see one person fix a problem cheaply online, then assume every similar symptom has the same answer. That is how a cheap repair becomes a pile of wrong parts. The smarter move is simple. Get the quote. Ask for the exact code, exact part, and exact reason they want to replace it. Ask whether the diagnosis is confirmed or just recommended. Ask for the part number. Look up the repair. Decide whether it is a filter level job, a careful weekend job, or a leave it to a shop job. That one habit changes everything. Because the dealership estimate is not just a bill, it is information. Sometimes the information tells you, pay the professional. Sometimes it tells you, buy the part and fix it Saturday morning. And sometimes it tells you, they are guessing and you need a second opinion. That is how you stop getting trapped. You do not have to become a master mechanic to save money on a Silverado. You just have to stop treating every quote like a final sentence. A cabin filter is not a crisis. An engine air filter is not a mystery. A battery needs clean connections. A light bulb should be checked before a harness is blamed. An EVAP code needs diagnosis, not panic. Brakes need respect. Misfires need testing. Oxygen sensors need confirmation. Oil pressure warnings need caution. And wheel hubs need a safe lift, correct torque, and a willingness to fight rust. That is the difference between throwing money at a truck and actually owning it. So the next time a Silverado dealer quote hits the counter, do not just look at the total. Look at the repair. Look at the part. Look at the labor. Then ask the question every truck owner should ask before handing over the card. Is this really a dealer job? Or is this a driveway job with a scarier invoice? And if you want the next breakdown, we are going into the Silverado repairs you should not do in the driveway. The ones that look simple online, but can turn into a tow truck, a fire hazard, or a much bigger bill. Subscribe so you do not miss that one.